Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we are setting up to do a second paint batch for the Preparation H project, and this is where creating content for the channel gets a little bit tough because we're, like others have said, basically watching paint dry. How to make that entertaining and still keep the video feed live, I have to get a little bit creative. So, well, I'll just give you a preview of the next batch. It's not very big. It's everything I need to get the brakes taken care of and the pedals on, belt pulley drive on, and a whole bunch of small linkage parts like for brake and clutch rod, and a lot of stuff involved in that braking system. So to move things along a little bit, I'll throw in a few questions from the comment section related to the task at hand. We'll start right up here with Jay Sales. He asks, where did you get your plastic caps? I thought you had mentioned it in one of your previous videos, but have forgotten. It comes in a kit from Caterpillar. It's right here. We have kit cap plug, part number 276-7018. I can guarantee once you get used to having this kit around, you will not know how you ever got along without it before. It's a little bit expensive, but after you've used it a few times, you've completely forgotten about the price. Comes in a really nice carrying case, so even after you're done with all the caps, you still have a good case you can use. It starts like with sizes as small as that, and it goes up incrementally, progressively larger and larger. The other side has larger sizes still, all the way up through about this size right here with no gaps in between. You can cover everything, and I use them quite a bit. Like you can see, I've got them plugging where the steering shaft goes through that pedestal. These red ones have been painted once already. They're the same ones I had in the brake actuator pivots there, but they were the same size for the covers. And I've used quite a few, not quite a few, but I've got some on X231 too. Anywhere you see those blue caps, came out of that kit. Very, very handy piece to have. Highly recommend it. And it's a few minutes later. I've got all of the items arranged outside for painting. I'll move the red truck so that it's not a redder red. And Senior is busy in town this morning, so I'm going to be mixing and cleaning and spraying all by myself for the primer, so I'm not going to worry about trying to get much of that on camera. I'm going to have my hands full enough as it is. Catch back with y'all in a bit. Almost out. Got it all done though. So the priming stage is done. This time I bumped the tip down to the 1.3 millimeter size. I did the 1.4 millimeter last time, and to me it was like it was flowing a little bit too much paint for my liking. I was a lot happier with the 1.3 and our reduced inlet pressure settings, and well, as you can see right here, overspray was down to a minimum, and I'm still satisfied with the finish that it put on all the pieces. At least with the primer, the true test is going to be the color. But back to the viewer Q&A real quick. A lot of good discussion beneath the last episode about this wheel spacing, dishing these centers in, but having them all the way out at the ends of the axles. We will go to JA. He says, are there any drawbacks to the, lack of better word, overhung load on the axle bearing and housing with the hub being all the way out on the axle? Also, Bill Tucson, any concern with increased torque having the wheel hub at the end of the axle? Sure, it will not be abused, just seems it was engineered to be close to the housing, stability aside. And to throw a contrasting comment in there, Lance Larson says, I believe those Farmalls came from the factory dished in like that. I have a picture of our Super H with my great uncle on it the day it came to the farm brand new, and they were dished in. And the reason why IH dished these wheel centers to the extent that they did was to gain even more adjustability when it comes to wheel center spacing. If not, they would have just left them straight. All right, it wouldn't even be a thing. So factory range of adjustment for rear wheels on Farmall H could be as narrow in as 44 inches or as far out as 80 inches, depending on if you had the centers dished in like they are now with the hub just about up to the seal retainer, or with the centers dished out with the hub all the way out on the end of the axle. So anywhere you decide to put the wheel center on this axle, whether it's all the way in or all the way out, is a legal move. Okay, the back end, the shafts, the housings, the bearings, they were all designed to cope with that wherever it may be. But this is also an H that just has the standard length axles. To dig a little bit deeper, we can go into the H parts manual. Item number 5 is the axle shaft. And we look at item number 5. Right here we have a 52-145 DC rear axle for 100-inch maximum tread special. That means we would gain another 10 inches on each side, which is this right here. Boom, that's how much longer that special axle would be, and that would allow you to dish that center out, have it all the way out at the end of that, and you would be 100 inches from center to center on the rear wheels. That would be one very wide tractor, and I do have confirmation that those super special wide axles did wear on the outer bearings more than the standard length axles did. But in any configuration like this, we really have nothing to worry about. You also need to take into account the offset factor of where the tire actually meets the ground. Because the wheel center is clamped out further this way, being that we've offset the tire in, we just we gave back a little bit of that leverage that it had all the way out on the axle shaft, because your actual fulcrum pivot point is further in. Senior's back. He just finished mixing the first batch of red, hopefully the only batch of red I'll be spraying today. That's in the gun, ready to go. Let's get to it. All right, everybody, quick break in the action. I've got the first batch of paint run through the gun, and we hit the majority of what we had. Watch my head here so that I don't run into the clothesline. Very important tip. Always put a brake on the garage door track when you've got all this fresh stuff hanging, because if we decided to open that door not thinking, that's all going to crash pretty badly. One more little tip I've found for painting these Farmalls, I'll show you out here real quick. We're just about done. We just have that steering pedestal and those 3 rods, and then the crossbar for the lights. Now, to paint these, I take a metal rod that sticks through the pipe, and I just put a little bit of a bend on the rod so that it ends up being a friction fit, and that way you can roll this thing however you want and it won't just rotate on the rod. And we learned that the hard way on the Super M. We finally figured out how to do that about halfway through. That's how we've done them all from that point on. So Senior's just about got my last little bit of a batch mixed. Catch back with you in a bit. All right, painting's done, and after getting everything out comes the inevitable putting everything back. This is my air hose for breathing right now. Oh, and somebody else asked about, well, we'll take that apart later. Somebody else asked about what the air supply is. It's just this little electric hobby air unit. It doesn't tap off of the main compressor at all. It's just an electric motor. There's a HEPA filter in there. It's got this Y adapter where you can feed 2 different masks off of it, and there's no on-off switch. You just it's either plugged in and running. Okay, I was going to do a real slick demonstration here. One-handed is so much fun. There. It's either plugged in and running or it's unplugged and not. And I don't know, it's as old as I've been painting, so close to 20 years. Still works good. So full tour. Everything is now arranged back here, all with fresh red paint. And the last few bits are right there, and then the 3 pedals there, and there. So that concludes the painting for the day. We just have a couple of other questions to get to. The black on the axle shafts. This was left by, it could be Joe Nelson Stir or Joe Nelson Stir. Anyway, in one of your last videos, you mentioned blacking or finishing the axles. I noticed in this video they were painted except where you were planning to have the hubs seat. Did you just brush on a single coat of Rust-Oleum, rattle can, or something else? Brushed on 2 coats of Rust-Oleum, and this is the Satin Black 7777. The Satin Black is like a semi-gloss. I've found that full gloss on these axle shafts just doesn't really look right, and a full flat black doesn't really look right either, but kind of a halfway in between, that satin black, that semi-gloss. Good match to the rubber on the tires. 2 coats brushed on. We don't have any overspray to worry about. That's how I do all these, and they hold up very, very well. And now the last question, which once again goes back to me dishing these wheel centers in to further narrow the track of the tractor. Steve McCoy asks, well, he says, most plow drawbars that I've seen are adjustable to change where the plow tracks. Maybe that's an option. And yes, I am well versed in adjusting the plow drawbars to get them to track right with, and mosquitoes are coming out. It's really bad again. And my allergies are kind of kicking up, so I'm going to be a little bit nasally. But yes, I'm well versed in adjusting plow drawbars to get everything to track in the dead furrow behind the right side tire. The problem is, well, let's go over to the diagram. I'll explain. This is an IH diagram, and it shows a 2-bottom plow and a 3-bottom plow, each with the draft lines, center line of tractor, center line of plow, and draft line between the two illustrated. And this is how I was set before, with the wheel centers dished out all the way in on the axles. And when you run that right rear tire in the dead furrow, you want your clearance of your furrow wheel against dead furrow on plow. The trouble is, here's the center line of the tractor, as denoted by the bottom edge of that rule, and here's the center line of the plow, as denoted by the bottom edge of that rule. And you see, we have an offset going on there. So what I did was dish the wheel centers in so that I could relocate both of these tires just a couple inches further in. And what I'm trying to do is move those 2 center lines, the center line of tractor and center line of plow, more perfectly in line with one another, so we no longer have that slight offset to the right. Because I have noticed on this tractor, every time I've tried to plow, I'm always having to just scrub the front wheels to the left a little bit, because the plow is slightly offset to the right from the center line of the tractor, and it wants to gradually drift the tractor to the right, so I'm constantly scrubbing the wheels to the left to keep that nose pointed where I want it to be. And that means you are wasting a certain amount of horsepower in the process. Just imagine if you had to pull a heavy weight behind you, is it going to be easier to pull it with one arm way off to the side or with your arm straight behind you? You're going to want to pull it with your arms straight behind you because it's trying to pull you around to it. Same principle right here. So that's why we're narrowing the tread of this tractor just another couple of inches so I can try and get that plow with the draft lined up between the 2 rear bottoms, because that's a big thing. Just because you can adjust the hitch of the plow to get it behind that right tire, if your tire's way out, your plow's still way off to the side, and you're not getting the most out of your equipment. And right here, we're just YouTubing around. I'm having fun swapping this stuff and changing it up. It's an experiment. We're going to see how it works. And if I don't like it, I can put it all back. And you know what? That's more YouTubing around. It's content either way. So I think I had a mosquito right there. We're having fun with it, and it's going to be an interesting experiment to see if I can make this tractor pull that plow even more efficiently than it did before. And also, because I'm narrowing the wheel tread, or the tread width on this tractor, that means I'm going to have to readjust the adjustable hitch on that plow to further streamline everything. The 2 of them together feed off of one another. It's a system. So that's the long and the short of it. And this has been all of the paint for batch number 2. I'm going to leave this paint to set up for at least 2 days, probably 3. I prefer 3 a little bit better. And by then, hopefully the mosquitoes will have subsided in the building. This is just from us having the doors open long enough today to move things in and out. This whole place just filled with mosquitoes. And also, this is probably the last paint batch I'm going to do for probably a few weeks, because the mosquitoes were becoming a problem trying to land in the fresh paint outside. And with the allergy stuff I've got going on, we're getting more and more pollen just in the air on the breeze. And I was noticing kind of some fish eyes from just debris coming by, settling on the primer coat, and then I spray the red paint over the top. You could tell they were getting a little bit dirty just in the few minutes they were sitting outside. So I think we're at the point with the weather and Mother Nature that we're going to have to let everything just calm down for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So that means a lot of mechanical work that can be done in here, and paint prep, clean parts, clean parts, clean parts. That makes it harder for me to find content for the feed. I think we'll get something figured out somewhere. So I'm going to vacate this place, get away from the mosquitoes and the paint fumes. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back again. There's always more work to do. Thank you, everybody.